In the twilight glow of Gaia X9's cityscape, where the stars seemed to dip so close they could stir the bioluminescent towers into a dance of colors, Captain Alara Nox stood at the edge of the Galactic Council's assembly chamber. Her eyes, a sharp contrast of steely resolve against the backdrop of delegates from 100 worlds, mirrored a tumult that her calm demeanor belied. Today was the day she'd lay bare the covert threats skulking in the shadows of diplomacy, threats that targeted her people, her mission. As the hum of interspecies conversations filled the air, each syllable a testament to the galaxy's diversity, Alara felt the weight of her next steps press against her chest like the gravity of a new planet. The chamber itself was an architectural marvel, a vast dome of transparent material harvested from the comet belts of Alarian, offering a panoramic view of the bustling capital. The setting sun cast long shadows over the delegates, turning their usual vibrant hues into muted tones that matched the growing tension in the room. Alara's pulse quickened as she navigated through the crowd. Each step was measured, her boots silent on the soft moss-like carpet, an imported organism from the forests of Zelthor that purified the air with each tread. The ambient sounds of the chamber swirled around her, the lilting chimes of the Shaither's language, the digital buzz of the mech clerics, and the sonorous roll of the Dragon emissary's speech. It was a symphony of the cosmos, each note a thread in the fabric of this diverse assembly. But beneath this harmony lay discord, sown by hidden hands. Attacks on human outposts had surged, each leaving behind a breadcrumb trail of clues that suggested a calculated intent to weaken humanity's standing in the Council. These were not random acts of piracy but precise, surgical strikes meant to destabilize and isolate. And as humanity's representative, and a military strategist, Alara had to expose the orchestrator before the fragile unity of the Council shattered completely. Her gaze fixed on the towering figure of Zorvax of Thrill, who conversed animatedly with a cluster of delegates, his hands painting pictures in the air, his laughter booming across the chamber. His presence was magnetic, his influence undeniable, and to Alara his intentions suspect. Today she would challenge the galaxy's preeminent puppet master on his own stage. The stakes were monumental, not just for her but for the entirety of human space. Failure was not an option, nor was retreat. As the assembly called to order, and the murmurs faded into a heavy silence, Alara took her place at the podium. The future of humanity, so intertwined with the stars above, was about to be defended on alien soil. And as she looked out over the sea of faces, Alara felt a fire ignite within her, a burning resolve to bring the truth to light, no matter the cost. With the galaxy watching, she began to speak, her voice steady and clear, carrying across the chamber like a beacon. Honored delegates, she started, the gravity of her words as palpable as the atmosphere of Gaia X9. We stand at a precipice. The air was charged, every delegate hanging on her next words, the fate of worlds balancing delicately in the silence that followed. The crisp morning light filtered through the geometrically impossible structures of Gaia X9, casting complex shadows that played across Captain Alara Nox's face as she prepared her team for the mission ahead. Gathered in the command center, a room alive with holographic displays and the low buzz of the quantum data processors, were specialists from across human territories, each chosen for their unique skills and unwavering loyalty. They were not just soldiers, they were guardians of humanity's fate, each aware of the gravity their task held. Alara briefed her team with meticulous precision. Our outposts didn't just suffer attacks, they were messages encoded in violence and chaos, she explained, her fingers gliding over the holographic display that mapped out the targeted locations. The images zoomed and rotated, showing the aftermath of the attacks, structures breached, technology scrambled, and most painfully, lives lost. Their first destination was the outpost on Terranus 3, a mining colony on the edge of human-controlled space. As their ship descended through the planet's thick, storm-laden atmosphere, the turbulence outside mirrored the unrest among the crew. Terranus 3 appeared through the gloom, its rugged terrain a patchwork of deep canyons and towering mesas, beneath which lay the heart of the colony. Upon landing, the desolation was palpable. The mining rigs, once throbbing with activity, stood silent. Buildings bore the scars of the assault, their walls ruptured as though clawed by some gargantuan beast. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burnt electronics and ozone, a stark reminder of the recent violence. Alara led her team through the wreckage, her eyes scanning for clues. They collected fragments of what appeared to be advanced explosives, technology that shouldn't have been available to common pirates. Each piece was carefully logged and tagged by Dr. Lena Voss, the team's forensic expert, whose hands moved with practiced ease. The team's tech specialist, Milo Wren, set up a portable data recovery station near the mainframe room, its door hanging off its hinges. "Looks like they tried to fry everything," Milo noted, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface as he attempted to extract whatever data survived the attack. After tense moments, he beckoned Alara over, a triumphant look on his face. "Got something," he said. The screen displayed logs of unauthorized access attempts, and crucially, a partial routing address that hinted at the origin of the attacks. As night fell, the temperature dropped sharply, a reminder of the harshness of this frontier world. The team gathered in what remained of the outpost's command center, a prefab structure now doubling as their temporary base. Over rations that tasted of processed nutrients and stale hope, they discussed their findings. "It's a lead, but it's thin," Alara mused, her mind racing through scenarios and strategies. The partial address wasn't much, but it was a thread in a larger tapestry of deceit they were slowly unraveling. The next morning brought a new destination, a research facility on the ocean world of Hydraxis 5, known for its violent sea storms and the valuable biocompounds harvested from its depths. The journey there was quiet, each team member lost in their thoughts, the ship's engines a soothing hum in the background. Hydraxis 5 welcomed them with towering waves and howling winds, the storm barrier around the facility flickering with each thunderous assault. Inside, the scene was less catastrophic than Tyrannus 3, but no less troubling. Data pads lay scattered, glass cracked from forceful entries, and the air held a lingering charge of desperation. Here, too, they found evidence of sabotage, a virus designed to corrupt the research data, but not destroy it, an act of theft rather than simple destruction. Alara realized that the attacks were not just to weaken but to steal, to hoard knowledge and technology for purposes yet unknown. As they left Hydraxis 5, the puzzle pieces were beginning to form a terrifying picture, but many pieces were still missing. Back aboard their ship, Alara looked out at the stars, their cold light a stark contrast to the warmth of her resolve. They were onto something significant, something that could change the balance of power within the Galactic Council, and she knew they were only just beginning to uncover how deep the conspiracy went. Captain Alara Knox felt the weight of the galaxy's eyes on her as her ship, the Vigilant, glided through the cosmos toward their next lead. The silence of space enveloped the vessel, a stark contrast to the storm of thoughts raging in Alara's mind. Each piece of evidence collected from Tyrannus 3 and Hydraxis 5 whispered of a conspiracy far-reaching and meticulously orchestrated. The threat was no longer a shadow, it was a storm cloud ready to burst. Inside the Vigilance strategy room, a holographic map of the sector pulsed with soft blue light, casting ghostly shadows across the faces of her crew. They were now en route to Nebulon Station, a sprawling trade hub orbiting the gas giant Qualler V. The station was a nexus for information, legal and otherwise, and Alara hoped to untangle the web of data they had amassed. Upon docking at Nebulon Station, the team split up with specific tasks. Alara and her second-in-command, Lieutenant Harrow, headed to meet an old contact of hers, a data broker known only as Silas, who operated out of the darker corners of the station. The corridors of Nebulon were a labyrinth of neon lights and shadowy alcoves, teeming with species from every corner of the galaxy. The air was thick with a cocktail of aromas, from the spicy tang of street food to the sterile scent of ionized air. Silas's shop was tucked away behind a nondescript door, its entrance flanked by two towering Grathid guards. Their eyes followed Alara and Harrow as they approached, but a nod from Silas, who stood in the doorway, stilled any challenge. Inside, the room was cluttered with relics and gadgets from 1,000 worlds. Silas, a thin, wiry figure with skin that shimmered like oil on water, greeted them with a crooked smile. "Captain Knox, to what do I owe the pleasure?" Silas's voice was a sibilant whisper, his eyes gleaming with cunning. "We need information," Alara stated plainly, sliding a data chip across the table. "Anything you can give us on these attacks." Silas picked up the chip, turning it over in his fingers. "Information is a valuable commodity, Captain. What's it worth to you?" "The safety of the galaxy," Alara replied, her gaze steady. Silas laughed, a sound like grinding gears, but nodded in assent. As Silas worked his networks, Alara and Harrow stepped back into the shadows of the shop, observing the broker's interactions. Screens flickered with data streams, codes running down in dizzying arrays. After what felt like an eternity, Silas turned back to them, his expression grave. "You're not going to like this," he began, handing back the chip. "Your saboteur is deeply connected. The routing address leads back to..." Before he could finish, an explosion rocked the station, cutting off the lights and sending everyone into darkness. Alarms blared, and the station shook with the force of the blast. Alara's heart raced. The timing was too precise, the attack too convenient. "Move," she barked, grabbing Harrow, as they ducked behind a counter just as another blast tore through the market outside. They could hear screams, the chaos of a crowd in panic, the rapid-fire exchanges of security forces engaging unseen assailants. "This was a setup," Harrow yelled over the noise, his face set in grim lines. Alara nodded, pulling out her communicator. "Team, regroup at the ship. We're leaving, now." Navigating back through the damaged corridors of Nebulon Station, Alara's mind raced. The attack was not just to disrupt their investigation, but to eliminate them. Someone was protecting the conspiracy at all costs, and they had just tipped their hand. Reaching the Vigilant, Alara set the coordinates for their escape. As the ship detached from the station and slipped into the cloak of space, she looked back at the chaos they left behind. The pieces were on the board, and the game was deadly. But now, they had a direction. The trail didn't end at Nebulon Station. It started there. The chapter closes with the Vigilant disappearing into the vastness of space, a speck against the infinite, carrying a crew bound together by duty, and the unyielding desire to uncover the truth. The conspiracy was deeper and darker than they had imagined, and Alara knew the real battle was just beginning. The Vigilant cut through the void of space like a silent predator, its engines humming a low, steady thrum that vibrated through the hull. Inside, Captain Alara Knox reviewed the data from Nebulon Station, her mind piecing together the labyrinthine puzzle. The partial address Silas had uncovered was a clue drenched in blood, a trail leading them deeper into the heart of the conspiracy. As Alara plotted their next course, the ship's comms system crackled to life. "Captain, you're needed on the bridge," came the urgent voice of Lieutenant Harrow. Alara responded with swift strides, the urgency clear in her pace. Upon entering the bridge, she was met by a tense atmosphere, the crew's faces etched with concern. The main screen displayed an incoming transmission, its origin encrypted and mysterious. "Put it through," Alara commanded, her voice steady despite the palpable tension. The screen flickered, then stabilized to reveal a figure shrouded in shadow, their voice distorted. "Captain Knox," the figure began. "You do not know me, but I know you in your quest for the truth. You are in danger, more than you realize." Alara's eyes narrowed, her hand instinctively moving to her sidearm. "Who are you? What do you want?" "I am someone who shares your enemies. The attacks on your outposts, the sabotage. You are fighting a shadow war against a powerful foe. Meet me at the coordinates I am sending now. I can provide the answers you seek." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving behind a set of coordinates and a heavy silence. Harrow looked at Alara, questioning. "It could be a trap," he said. "It could," Alara agreed, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond the viewport. "But it's a lead. "Prepare the team. We're going in." The coordinates led them to a small, uncharted moon circling a gas giant in a forgotten sector of the galaxy. The landscape was barren, dusted with a thin layer of frost that glimmered under the light of distant stars. The Vigilant landed with a soft hiss of its landing gears, the ramp lowering onto the icy surface. Alara and her team, fully armed and vigilant, moved towards the designated meeting point, a derelict structure that looked like an abandoned research facility. As they approached, a figure emerged from the shadow of the building, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I am Valen." The figure introduced himself, stepping into the light. He was a Chrysalian, his skin translucent and shimmering with an inner light. "I was a scientist for the Council until I discovered what you seek, the truth about the attacks." Alara listened intently as Valen explained. The conspiracy involved several high-ranking officials across various species, all part of an illicit syndicate that sought to control the Council through fear and manipulation. As Valen provided data chips with evidence, Alara felt a flicker of hope, but that hope was short-lived. Mid-sentence, Valen stiffened, his eyes widening in shock. A sharp, resonant sound echoed, and Valen collapsed, a dark patch spreading across his chest. "Sniper!" Alara's mind screamed. "Take cover!" she shouted, as the team scrambled into defensive positions. Shots rang out, pinging against the metal structures around them. The ambush was swift, the attackers cloaked in the anonymity of distance and darkness. But Alara and her team were not unprepared. They returned fire, their shots guided by the advanced targeting systems of their suits. As the firefight ensued, Alara noticed a figure retreating from the direction of the sniper fire, a figure she recognized. "Harrow, on me," she commanded, chasing after the assailant. They cornered the figure in a narrow alley between crumbled structures, the icy wind whipping around them. The figure turned, and Alara's heart sank as she faced a member of her own crew, someone she had trusted. "Why?" she asked simply, the betrayal stinging sharper than the cold. The crew member sneered, a mix of fear and defiance in their eyes. "You don't know what you're up against, Nox. You're a pawn in a much larger game." Alara's response was cut short as more shots rang out, forcing her to dive for cover. The traitor used the moment to escape, disappearing into the moon's desolate landscape. Breathing heavily, Alara regrouped with her team, her mind racing. The betrayal within her ranks was a bitter pill to swallow, but it solidified her resolve. "We're ending this," she declared, her voice echoing in the cold air. "We're taking this evidence back, and we're going to expose them all." As they returned to the Vigilant, the weight of their mission heavier than ever, Alara knew the real battle was just beginning. The conspiracy was more extensive and entrenched than they had imagined, but now they had the evidence, and the resolve to bring it down. The Vigilant hurtled back towards Gaia X9, the gathered evidence stored securely within its digital vaults. Captain Alara Nox stood solemnly at the helm, her gaze fixed on the star-streaked void ahead. The weight of their discoveries felt as heavy as the ship itself, each piece of evidence a bullet in the chamber of justice she was eager to fire. Upon arrival, the atmosphere aboard the ship was electric with tense anticipation. Alara gathered her team in the briefing room, where the cold metal walls seemed to amplify the gravity of their mission. "Today we bring the truth to light," she declared, her voice resolute. "We expose the conspiracy and those behind it, not just for humanity, but for all species represented in the Council." The team nodded, their faces set with determined resolve. They had seen too much to turn back now. The data they had collected painted a damning picture of corruption and manipulation, implicating high-ranking officials across several species, including some within the Galactic Council itself. The Galactic Council's assembly chamber was a vast circular room with tiers of seats rising up around a central speaking platform. As the Vigilant docked at the Council's space station, Alara and her team disembarked, the evidence securely on her datapad. The chamber was already filling with representatives, murmurs of conversation bouncing off the ornate walls, creating a low, constant hum. Alara stepped onto the central platform, her presence commanding immediate attention. The murmurs hushed as hundreds of eyes turned towards her. She felt the weight of their gazes, the air thick with anticipation and dread. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of the council," Alara began, her voice echoing in the chamber. "We stand before you not just as representatives of humanity, but as defenders of truth and justice for all species of this council." She proceeded to present the evidence systematically. Holographic displays sprung to life above her, showing communications, financial transactions, and covert meeting records. Her presentation was meticulous, each piece of evidence linking the shadowy cabal directly to the attacks on human outposts and beyond. The reaction in the chamber was immediate and visceral. Accusations flew. Denials roared. Alara remained steadfast, her evidence irrefutable. The implicated members, including a few who had masked their treachery behind a facade of diplomacy, were visibly shaken. One of the accused, a high-ranking Thesian diplomat, stood, his scales shimmering with a mix of anger and fear. "This is preposterous," he exclaimed. "These accusations are based on falsified evidence." Alara faced him squarely. "Is it, Ambassador? Or is it that the truth is too damning to accept?" She turned the display to show a video of the ambassador accepting bribes. The chamber erupted into chaos, voices raised in shock and outrage. As the council called for order, the president of the council, a wise old Yultrix named Mervyn, rose to speak. His voice was calm but carried a sharp edge. "We have seen enough. The evidence presented here cannot be ignored. We will have order, and we will have justice." Security officers entered the chamber, detaining the implicated members. Alara watched as they were led away, her heart heavy but her conscience clear. She had done her duty, exposed the rot within, but the victory was bitter. The session ended with Mervyn addressing the assembly. "Let this day be a reminder to us all of the fragility of trust and the strength of truth. We must rebuild, not just our alliances but our commitment to the principles this council was founded on." As the chamber slowly emptied, Alara felt the tension ease from her shoulders. Her team gathered around her, offering smiles of relief and congratulations. They had faced incredible odds, but they had prevailed. Yet, as they left the council chamber, Alara knew that this was not the end. It was a victory, yes, but the path to true peace and stability was long and fraught with challenges. The conspiracy had been quelled, but its echoes would linger, influencing the council's dynamics for years to come. The vigilant crew returned to their ship, the stars beyond the viewport seeming a little brighter, a little more hopeful. But as the ship drifted away from Gaia X9, Alara's thoughts were already turning to the future, to the next battle in the never-ending war for justice. As the Vigilant slipped silently through the velvet darkness of space, Captain Alara Knox stood by the viewing port, watching the distant stars. The weight of their recent victory at the Galactic Council was still settling in her bones, a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and the unshakable awareness of new responsibilities now laid upon her shoulders. The galaxy was vast, and its problems myriad. The conspiracy they had uncovered was only one malignancy in a complex web of interstellar politics that spanned countless worlds and species. As she pondered their next steps, Alara knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But for the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was a shimmer of hope, a belief that change was possible. Inside the Vigilance conference room, Alara convened with her trusted team, the architects of their recent triumph. The room buzzed with a subdued energy, the air filled with a sense of purpose. Maps and data streams flickered on screens, charting potential new missions and strategies for solidifying the fragile peace they had fought so hard to achieve. "Today we start anew," Alara began, her voice firm yet infused with optimism. "Our victory at the Council has given us a mandate to ensure that such corruption never takes root again. We have been given the tools, now we must act." She outlined their next series of missions, diplomatic outreaches, security collaborations, and support for rebuilding efforts on the outposts that had suffered under the conspiracy's shadow. Each task was designed not just to mend but to strengthen the bonds between council species, to build a foundation of trust that could withstand the tests of time and ambition. As the meeting concluded, Alara's crew dispersed, each member carrying away a part of the collective mission, their roles more crucial than ever. Alara remained, gazing at the star map, her thoughts drifting to the distant worlds. Each point of light was a story, a world with its hopes and fears, now depending on her and her team for stability and protection. Leaving the conference room, Alara made her way to the ship's deck where the crew was gathered. They stood by the viewing port, looking out at the vastness of space. Joining them, Alara felt a camaraderie born of shared trials and triumphs. She addressed them, not as their captain now, but as their equal. "We've seen the darkness that lurks in the corners of power," she said, her gaze sweeping over her team. "But we've also seen what can be achieved when we stand together. What we've begun is bigger than any one of us, bigger than the Vigilant. We're not just protecting humanity, we're guardians for the galaxy." Her words resonated, bolstering the spirits of her crew. There was a renewed sense of duty, a readiness to face whatever challenges came next. In the days that followed, the Vigilant became more than a ship. It was a beacon of hope, traveling from one system to another, fostering dialogue, securing peace, and reinforcing the values they had all fought so hard to uphold. With each mission, the scars of past conflicts began to heal, slowly replaced by bonds of mutual respect and cooperation. As the Vigilant charted its course back towards Gaia X9, for a summit intended to codify the new peace initiatives, Alara stood once more at the viewing port. The galaxy spread out before her was no longer a map of conflicts and conquests, but a tapestry of potential, a narrative of unity being woven in real time. Her reflection in the glass wasn't just a soldier or a diplomat, but a pioneer of peace, determined to see this new era through. And as the stars blinked silently back at her, she knew this was just the beginning.